I've known in my heart for a very long time that I need to go to the Holy Land. My mother's father had always proudly affirmed that he was a true black Judean. This journey was an ancestral calling to rectify the fallacies that have been perpetuated about this biblically historic land, its region, the people who claim to be its original inhabitants, and the people who have in fact lived on the land for generations upon generations. Introduce yourself and give us a brief understanding of your connection to the Holy Land.
I am Sar Madiel Ben Yehuda. Sar means minister. My title in the community, my role as minister, my portfolio is that of information. I'm charged to collect, to analyze, and to disseminate information about the Hebrew Israelites here in Israel, about our particular history as a community and our history as a people connecting back to this land. We consider Israel to be Northeast Africa. We are living here in the southern portion of Israel in what is known as the southern Judean mountains. And of course, we have to make this clear that Israel predates any Palestinian connections here to this land. When you look at the name of Palestine, it was the name that the Romans gave to the land formerly known as Judea. Now, I didn't say Jewish or Judaism, but Judea. So the Judeans were the people that actually lived in this portion of this land prior to it being named Palestine by the Romans. So this is what we consider to be Northeast Africa. We are sitting on the African tectonic plate. There are African species of birds and animals and plants that you'll find all throughout this region.
Why I took you here is that I want to show you that the country called Israel is sitting on the African tectonic plate. It's like all continents are sitting on a plate, okay? Mm-hmm. And these plates, sometimes they slide in, and they rub one another and see, and what happens, that's what happens when earthquakes happen. The plates begin to slide among one another, and if you get a crack in one of the plates, magma will come up, like a volcano. Mm-hmm. A magma would come up, and it will cause, great devastation because of the volcano, but it's because of the shifting of these tectonic plates.
Without question, we are in Northeast Africa. We are landlocked to Egypt, with the exception of the Suez Canal, which was a man-made ditch, a boundary now between, in fact, it's not even really a boundary anymore since Egypt has reclaimed the Sinai Peninsula. But nevertheless, even those of us who are Pan-Africanists in our thinking and Afrocentric, we forget and we leave off that portion of Northeast Africa and don't want to claim anything beyond that. Of course, Afrocentrists are still fighting tooth and nail for Egypt to be included as a part of Africa, because most Egyptologists and anthropologists, archaeologists of the Eurocentric persuasion will say that Egypt is in Africa. They had to concede that, but then they still draw the line by saying that they weren't Africans like that. In other words, they weren't dark-skinned people. And of course, this is all part of the Great Deception. And the reality is that if they give up Egypt, ancient Kemet, if they give that up and say that that was a part of black Africa, then they will also have to give up Israel. And that's why they draw the line at Egypt, because if they give up Egypt, they've got to give up Israel.
Now, we're going to go over here, and I'm going to show you where Israel sits on the African tectonic plate, which means that Israel is Northeast Africa. Now, when we look at this map, this is the Sinai, okay? This is the Red Sea. This is Egypt. This is the Sinai. This is Israel. All right, this is Saudi Arabia over here. Now, if you see this in Hebrew, it says Haluach Africani, the African plate. Here it is right here. Israel is sitting right here. Israel is sitting on the Haluaka Africani, which means that Israel is northeast Africa.
There is no Middle East area. If you sit here in Israel, you have a border with Egypt. So Egypt is in Africa. So how I can say this is Middle East? To me, it's Africa land. Blacks from Africa back to home, and also from Africa, from here, we've been there. And also, for most of the blacks, they have a confusion about Israel. This is your home. This is your land. I start from zero to know who am I. After that, I hear from the cousins, I am a Jewish, I have a full right to come in Israel. I am sitting here 22 years. So from Bible also you learn most of the history and the Bible of the prophets or the peoples inside the Bible, they are not blondes or blue eyes. They are looks like me or looks like you. So I believe this is the land of Africa.
So in your eyes, this land, the Holy Land, what they call Israel, Palestine, this is Africa.
This is Africa. This is Africa.
The Europeans, I mean, because we know the Europeans classify this as the Middle East. But this is Africa.
This is Africa. This is north of Africa. Now they make Libya and Morocco and Tunis, they say it North Africa. It's west, the west. We are in the north.
This is the Mediterranean Sea right here. So people say, well, why do you say, but it's Asia Minor? You know, when Europeans be talking about this Asia Minor, I ask them, where's Europe Minor? Where's America Minor? Okay, this is the only continent with a minor. And you know what that minor is? It's a minor lie. It's really a major lie. Understand what you're talking about? Some Asia Minor. Where's Europe Minor? Where's America Minor? But see, when they say Asia Minor, they don't have to classify this land as being part of the African continent. And they want to call it the Middle East. The middle of what? Okay? The only reason why they call this the Middle East, because people here in England, when they would come down into the Mediterranean Sea and go through the Suez Canal, go into the Red Sea and go to Far East, go to China, they were saying they was in the middle of their journey.
We've done a great job in being able to demonstrate that this is Northeast Africa. And once we begin to look at it as such, and we stop believing this idea of Israel being a part of the Middle East. What do you mean Middle East? Is there an Upper East, a Lower East? What do you mean Middle East? It's a geopolitical term that the British, our good friends the British, that they used during their reign and their dominion, which has long since passed. The sun is long set on the British Empire. They no longer rule the seven seas, but they, in their world, in their worldview, they called this region the Middle East, and it made sense in that perspective, because going to their east, when they got as far as they could to their east, and they called that the Far East, and to this day it's still called the Philippines, China, Asia, or Far East Asia, whatever. So when you look at going to those regions and passing through this region, passing through Syria, passing through Israel, passing through Egypt, passing through Afghanistan, Iran, etc., it made sense according to their worldview to call this the Middle East. It was the middle of their East. But no longer will a geopolitical term suffice for what we're saying is geological and geographical truth.
Europeans classified this area as a Middle East. You know, and then since this the Middle East, the other question, where the Middle West? Where the Middle North and where the Middle South? They don't have no geographical terms like that. And the only reason why they use that term, Middle East, because it disconnects the proper connotation that should go with describing this land geographically.
So to me, what I understood, also I learning in Ethiopia what is the geography of Africa and Middle East, automatically I feel like Africa. So even now, after 22 years, I saw the culture, I saw the meal, you know, there is no Middle East culture. All of these things came from Africa, and also from this culture, or originally from here, from this land, from Jerusalem. And now to see the things properly Africa, not Middle East.
So let the truth speak for itself. It's not my interpretation. Here it is in Hebrew. This is written in Hebrew.
And in Hebrew that says?
This says Luaka Africani, the African tectonic plate. That's where Israel is sitting on. Okay? And then over here at this map, they showed you where the whole earth was called Pangea. Okay? This is when all the continents was together. All right?
The whole earth was called Pangea?
Yeah.
What does that mean in Hebrew?
Pangea is like...
So Pangea, that was the name for the whole earth?
Yeah, that was like, but that's a Greek name. That's not, got nothing to do with Hebrew. But then what they said, and this is true, the continents begin to pull apart. Asia pulled apart, Africa, South America, and North America. Now, if you look at the continents, look at South America and Africa. You can just bring them back together and they'll fit like a puzzle. The Mediterranean Sea was created by these continents pulling apart. And that's what I'm telling you about those tectonic plates. Those tectonic plates pulled apart.
So that's when the earth, everything was one?
Absolutely.
They're like a little baby.
Because remember...
They're like a little baby, right?
Right.
You see like a person.
You know what? Now, I've been coming looking at this all the time. That do look like a little baby. There's the head, there's the feet, the legs, and the body.
It's like a little baby still.
Now remember, God said, let there be,
It's like a little baby in the womb, where it's around.
Absolutely. So what we have to understand is that in the beginning of the creation, God said, let there be land. The land, okay, it wasn't divided, it was one. All right, but when you begin to have these tectonic plates pull away, then this is what you have today. These different continents. That's Asia.
So Asia.
And this is Africa, that's South America and North America. But if you look at them, you can just push them back together. And guess what? They're still moving apart. Right now as we speaking. So I hope the listening audience understand that we're talking fact here. This is not my interpretation. Truth is going to liberate us from being separated as a people. Truth is going to liberate us from thinking that we're scientifically intelligent and we don't have enough common sense to not even stop destroying our own environment. How can you destroy that which we depend upon to exist?
I want to say I'm sorry that my English is not so good, but I will try, to explain or to teach the people that don't know that we are here in this land before maybe more in 2,000 of years in this area, in Sinai Desert. It's not far from here. It's near the Jordan-Israeli border. There is our land, my grandfather's land. So before the state of Israel, the border of this Israel or Palestine is not in this border today. It's very near. Before it's El Arish in Egypt today. There is the border of the holy land. This is the religion thing. So many people they don't know that the black people here in this land, it's not for the last 100 years or something like this. It's more than 1,000 of years.
Africa. He's from Africa.
نحن 10 دورات
10 generations here.
פה בישראל, הייתה פלסטין, הייתה לפני הטורקים אנחנו.
Before the Palestinian, before the Turkish Empire, his people was here.
אנחנו היינו משפחה קטנה.
We was a small family.
היום אנחנו משפחה, יש בה 700 גבר.
700 men in his community now.
600 נשים.
600 women right here. In his family. This is family, personal family. This is not his friend.
The original people here, it was black. I know about the history of Beni Hilal. I know about the Zir Salem history. Everybody knows this. Most of the Bedouin here, most of them, they come from the Arab Gulf. They know. They can know they're not original here. They know that we are the original people here in this land.
The evidence is hands down. It's not even something that we engage in a debate on about the dark-skinned nature of the peoples that lived in these regions in antiquity. The reality is that we tend to look at this land based on what we've seen in contemporary times. And what do we see? We see fair-skinned Israelis and we see fair-skinned Arabs.
I'm here, original here for 1,000 years. But the other tribes, I want to talk about the Bedouin. The other tribes here, all the Bedouin here.
Other black Bedouins.
Not the black, even the white.
Even white Bedouin.
Not the Bedouin, there's no white Bedouin.
Yeah.
Bedouin all black. It's not like me.
Yeah. Little light skin, like
between white and
mixed.
All this tribe you see the Bedouin here, you tell them. Yeah. This will tell you I'm from Arab Saudia, the original. This tribe will tell you, I'm from north of Jordan. Everybody will tell you he's not original for in this land. He came, not me.
But you came. Did you originally?
They came. But
you,
me, I say I'm here. So they have to be clear. If you discuss with them, okay, they say, all of you come here, okay? Who was living this land?
They say it's a black man.
The black man. And before maybe 2000 and a half, there's the Hebrews. The Hebrews.
The Hebrews were black as well, right?
Yeah, there was in this land, there was just the Bedouin, the black Bedouin like me, and the Hebrews. That's it.
One of the things that we have to understand is that Sheikh Aid, men like Sheikh Aid and others who are the Afro-Bedouins, the Afro-Palestinians in this land, many of them are actually the original peoples of this land. When you go back to the earlier Zionist thinkers, and I'm going all the way back to Berekov, who was the theoretician of the Zionist left, that he actually referred to them as most probably these people that were living in the land prior to the establishment of the state, that they were most probably descendants of the early Judeans and the early Canaanites. And of course, the Canaanites were an African people, sons of Ham.
We are deeply rooted in this country. We are talking about generations and generation and generation. For example, the picture which I have over here. Now look at the picture pretty well. The man holding the rope of the camel. The man holding the rope of the camel is the Caliph Umar bin Khattab. He is the third man after Prophet Muhammad.
Caliph Ma?
Caliph Umar bin Khattab.
Ma.
When he came to Jerusalem, look at the one who's riding the camel. He's a brother. You can say we began when the Islam came to Palestine, but I'm quite sure we are even before and before and before.
The Israeli author Shlomo Sand, in his book, The Invention of the Jewish People, between the pages of 184 and 188, he goes into great depth talking about the early Zionist thinkers like Ber Borakov and even David Ben-Gurion. He quotes David Ben-Gurion and Ben Zvi, Yitzhak Ben Zvi, talking about the fact that the early Judean peasants were actually the foundation of what they encountered when they came into this land. This is a book they wrote 30 years prior to the declaration of Israel's independence. And they recognized that the Fellahim, this peasant class, were actually those that had remained here, that had converted perhaps to Islam, that had converted perhaps to Christianity, depending on the ruling class, depending on the armies at the time that held Jerusalem and held this particular region. They simply, in their love for the land and the fact that these armies needed to be fed, they became the peasant class, the agrarian agronomists, the agriculturalists who continue to raise their crops and to take care of their families in a desire to stay on this land.
Many black people there was here in this land. I see, for example, I want to tell you that thing. That history is in the history before maybe 2,000 years, something like that. There is in this area was a black tribe is called Beni Hilal. Then they say Zayd al-Halali. Everybody know. Everybody in all the Arab wars, if you saw you so strong, you this, they say, what, you are Zayd al-Halali. He was a very brave black man, very strong, very rightness. He like the right. He know the truth. He fight here in this land. Everybody know from the history, even today in our tribe, they remember this man.
I have a book called The Arabs. I believe the author's name was Bertrand Thomas. On page 339, he says the original inhabitants of Arabia were not the more familiar Arabs of our own time, but a very much darker people. Now, why would you write a book on the Arabs and then tuck that little sentence away on page 339 talking about the original people? It's obvious that certain historians and anthropologists have something that they want to hide or that they don't want out front. And of course, the color of the people of this land in antiquity, that's what they don't want to be known.
All this tribe, you ask him from all the Negev, they will tell you, we come from Tabuk, an Arab Saudi Arabia. This will come from here. This will come from Egypt. There's Egyptian. And we still tell him, we still call him, you are Egyptian. They say, yeah, they're Egyptian, you come. But what they say, we come, then we bring you like a slave.
Not right.
Not right. Because you see, why? Because if you make like either how they call it in English, incubation.
Yeah.
Incubation
in regards to.
No, when the government come to
capture. When they want to capture land.
Cut this land. We tell him okay, but in the regional, if a slave he don't have a land, okay, he can a slave, he just work or eat or something, okay. But I have my own land. Even the Israel government can't take it from me. I have a document, and the other one he have. So some of this white people, they don't have the document of land. If he have a land of document, he buy it from somebody. You buy it from who? You buy it from the black. Because the slaves, they don't have no land. But how this black people, they have a land, they have their own land. And the white, they have the document, he buy this land.
So you have a document for the land you have. The land I came to your house yesterday, you have document for that land?
Yeah.
All that massive space is yours?
This is near the Egyptian border.
Okay.
It's now it's a place for the army training. It's a desert. It's a good desert.
And it's your land?
Yeah. The potatoes like this. But they can't give me, I can go there maybe in Friday, Saturday, I can go free. Another day, I can go, but not for to stay there because this is a place for the army.
But it's your land, you own that land?
My land, yeah.
That's like when
the Israeli government, they know this. They know it's my land. I can take you to the office, the land office, and say, okay, this is yours.
That's like when I was talking to the people in Jericho. They were saying that their family owned a lot of the land around there.
Now I have some people that live, where is my life? She's from Nablus, Chicken, in the Palestinian Authority. They call it Abu Sita family. Sita family, they have their own land is here. Now the Palestinians, they have the land. When they come to visit me, I take them, I say, you see this? It's your land. You have other land. But you see what's war make? You were war. Then they say, oh, my grandfather, my father, they told us, we have a land. But you can't come because they make a problem. But they have the land there.
You see, many people don't know that. You see, the fact that you can prove thousands of years ago that this is your land, that shows who was here first. It shows we were here first.
Yeah.
Because you can prove this
You
is...
know, I can't take you here in the north. I can't take you with all people in all the area. I will tell you. You see like this. Big desert. Wake up. I say, this land belongs to this family. This one belongs to that family. This belongs to this family. This belongs to this family. This one for the government. This one for this family. We know every centimeter. So we don't need, even we say just as, we don't need no document, nothing between us. Like Bedouin or something, the people live here. I want to tell you, there is a land for the Jewish. Original Jewish.
Original black Jewish.
Yeah, we tell them, this for the Adar, this is the Jewish people land. We know, nobody can take it.
When you say Jewish, you mean the black ones, the original
the black
ones who went.
Because they say, this, they call it Jewish, that's it.
Yeah.
This for the Christian family, families like this. We know him. This for him, this for... Nobody take each other. Everybody control. I take my sons now to the land.
So where's the black Jewish land?
Black Jewish land.
For the original people, like with David, from King David and Solomon's times.
You know, from maybe the Galilee, from maybe Damascus. You know Damascus?
Yeah, Syria.
Syria, from Syria to this, all this Jericho, even Amman, Rabat Amman, Jordan, I mean. It's not all of Jordan, on this side of Jordan, Amman, up to Eilat, to Aqaba, and this area, but in this area, from where he's sitting today, here, from here to upstairs, they call it Yehuda land. And then after this, there was Yehoshua and the Jews, most of the Jewish, the Hebrews, they was in Jordan and Jerusalem, Jericho, in this place, up to here maybe, up to Beersheba.
Judea.
Yehuda, up to Beersheba here in this area. But you know, maybe I say 80% or something like that in Jerusalem, Jericho, Rabat Ammon, and that.
When you look at the engravings from the 650 before the Common Era of Assyrians, which is north of this particular region, you see very, very clear African features in terms of the hair, the hairstyles, the tight woven coarse hair or braids or cornrows or locks, if you will. You'll see these, you'll see the noses that could not have been broken off on these rather small relief carvings like they were on the larger statues, of course, throughout Egypt.
Even today you see most of the blacks, because the war and here in the Middle East in the last maybe 100 years or 200 years, some of my family today, there's in Egypt, some of them in Jordan, some of them in the Palestinian Authority, and they know the original. They say we are from this Negev, this area. See, we are the same family. There is in Jericho too. We are in the same family. We live here in this land, but you know, a policy or political or And we don't that we are not new here, but you know the government before the Turkish people come here, they control this land for 400 years, and they left, and we stay in the desert. Then the English, the government of English people, they come here, maybe control some of a little time, and they left, and we stay here, and now it's the Israeli, and we stay here, and we could continue to stay in this land, and we trying, you know, to let the people know that's you know, everybody new one come here with the power, with the gun, with the muscles, with this is my land. But people, they have to know the truth. If you have the truth, you have the power, you have to be strength, you have to be to know. That's like I'm saying, everybody here, if you not have no right, you will go. I will stay here for 1,000 of years in the future.
For example, if you go around to Jericho, if you go to the West Bank, some of the refugee camps over there, what's really strange is to see white people over there, like Tulkarem in the north of West Bank. If you go to Gaza City, Khan Yunis, there is a quarter called El Garara. All over there, it's our people over there. If you go to Beersheba, Arad, the Negev, Hebron, some villages around Hebron.
So you say African presence dates way back before religious presence like Islam and Christianity?
I am sure of that, yeah. It's before, long ago.
Shlomo Sand refers to the book written by David Ben-Gurion and Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, chapter 2, where he refers to the fact that the Jewish farmer, like any other farmer, was not easily torn from his soil, which had been watered with his sweat and the sweat of his forebears. Despite the repression and suffering, the rural population remained unchanged. So, and again, the co-author of the book with Ben-Gurion, Shlomo Sand, also refers to a book by him about 10 years later, in 1929. Yitzhak Ben-Zvi writes that the great majority of the Fellahin do not descend from the Arab conquerors, but before that, from the Jewish Fellahin, who were the foundation of this country before the conquest by Islam. So these two quotes together make it very clear again that the early Zionist thinkers, the founding fathers of the country, actually recognized the presence of the original peoples of the land embodied in those that had remained as Bedouins in the various quarters of the land.
Could you give us a brief history about Lokman and David? And to your understanding, where was David from?
I understand that King David, when he was in this land, in Yehuda, in that time, they living in this region. A man, he's called Lokman. Lokman, he's have a, they call it in the Quran surah. One surah called Lokman, for the name of Lokman for this black man. This black man, the greatest give him a wisdom. So King David, if he have some problem or conflict, he have to ask, he used to ask Luqman how to make this. And you see in that surah in the Quran that Luqman all the time, he give him the solution, how to give him the solution, how to do. And even King David, he don't know. He say, why does he say, do this, do that, and you see. Then they call him Luqman. And that's mean for me, it's before 2000, King David, maybe before, I don't know, 3,000 or 5,000 years ago. There was a black here in this land, in this area. So nobody say we are come from, they bring us from Africa or so. No, we are in Africa.
Coming in of the Roman era and the military and political, great military pressure coming from the north. And then when Israelites and other surrounding Northeast African tribes people were scattered at the hands of the Romans, the understanding is somehow that, well, they must have gone to the north, that the so-called 10 lost tribes in Judah and Benjamin must have ended up in Russia, Poland, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Austria, those areas. And that doesn't make sense. If a military power is coming from your north, you wouldn't flee to your north. You would flee south. And of course, biblically, there's tons of interactions between ancient Israel and ancient Egypt. And the movement, even during the time of Joseph again, during the time of Yeshua's parents spirited him away into Egypt, where he was hidden away from Herod's decree. There was always a long engagement and a connection of interaction with ancient Egypt and points further south. So when you look at the migration patterns of peoples from this land at the hands of the Romans and on up into the 14th, 15th centuries, you'll find that those patterns lead them into West Africa, lead them into Central Africa, lead them into even Southern Africa. And when you begin to look at the various ethnic groups in Africa, the Lemba in South Africa, in Zimbabwe in South Africa, they claimed that they were Israelites, and that was their cultural history. And of course, many years they were denied and told, no, you couldn't possibly be connected to the Jews. Well, they got up the nerve to do a DNA test, and the DNA test did indeed prove that their connections are authentic. In fact, more so than the Ashkenazi Kohen line coming out of Europe. And I could go on and on with the different ethnic groups, the Ashanti and the Ewe and the Ga and Fanti in Ghana, the Yoruba and the Igbo in Nigeria, the Wolof, the Fulani and others in portions of West Africa. So when you begin to look at these peoples, their history, their culture, their oral traditions will say that we came from the northeast, and some of them directly link back up to being Israelites or having been in bondage in Egypt. The Ga that live in the Accra region of Ghana today, they have a festival called Homowo, and during that festival they smear red clay on the doorposts. Well, if that's not reminiscent of Passover, then we're blind. But these are obvious historical connections that prove and show for us that the Israelites ended up scattered throughout Africa. And of course, it was from West Africa that those like unto myself ended up on those slave ships and were brought into the Western Hemisphere. And you'll find those same threads of cultural continuity when you look at the roots and origins of the people that live in Brazil, the Afro-Brazilians. They practice what's really Yoruba traditions, and the Yoruba link back up to Israel. When you look in the Caribbean, well, where did Bob Marley get the idea to sing about Exodus and Zion Train? Of course, the Rastafarian influence, the connections, and that thread brings you back across into East Africa, Ethiopia, but also from the thread of the union of the lineage of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, back to Israel again. And of course, in America, North America, where I originated, where I was born and raised, we sang songs as the only form of legal expression. We were to read or write or preach or teach out of the Bible was often forbidden and punishable by death in many instances. But to sing those songs in the fields, we didn't sing about the river Niger, the river Gambia, the river Volta. We sang about the river Jordan. We didn't sing about Mali, Songhai, or Timbuktu. We sang about Jericho, Jerusalem, and Canaan's land.
I am bound for Canaan land, on that happy golden strand.
And we can document that this actually predates any missionary exposure. We didn't learn about the Bible from Europeans. There's documentation that proves that when the first European explorers went into West Africa, Mungo Park, one of them, a Scottish explorer, he found a brother who was a schoolmaster who had the first 5 books of the Bible in Arabic. And he was giving out the stories of Joseph and his brethren, Solomon, David, Moses. And he gave these stories out as part of their own folklore. And when he found out that this European knew the same stories, he was surprised. So our exposure to the Bible and biblical culture, Hebraic culture, was not via European missionaries. It was already part of our inbred culture that we carried with us, even though we may have gone butt naked from the western shores of Africa into the Western Hemisphere, but we arrived there with these cultural memories and a continuity of purpose and a lineage that took us back to this land.
Coming from the Western Hemisphere and returning to the Holy Land, you also may know that many African descendants don't see this as part of the African continent. Do you think this plays a major role in their lack of vision in regards to the prosperity of this land?
Certainly, they're not being able, the African diaspora being unable to see Israel as part of Africa is all part of the deception.
What we have here is what they call anachronism. When you have something that has been placed in a historical background, like a painting, that does not belong there. And as we see, this is an insult to the injury that has already been done, because here's a good fellow with a backwards baseball cap on. Surely they didn't have these kind of headwear 2,000 years ago. But the idea that they want you to believe in is that this fellow riding on this donkey looks like some of the Jews that are here today. So this looks like, historically, it is in the same continuity historically as the people that inhabit the land today. But another thing about anachronism is that at the Last Supper, if you remember, Yeshua and the disciples were sitting around the table, and they had glassware on the table. They were not drinking out of glass 2,000 years ago. Those were clay mugs, they were made out of brass, they were made out of ornaments and plants, you know, that you can carve out those kind of vessels. So that's an anachronism, because they did not have glass 2,000 years ago, just like they did not have a baseball cap.
As long as we begin or continue to look towards Europeans as the people of the Bible, as the people of this region, as the holy people, and the Holy Land somehow has been dissected or removed from being part of Africa, it will continue to manifest itself in spiritual problems for our people. Why is that? Well, we all grew up looking at movies every Christmas and Easter, and we looked at Europeans playing the role of Moses and Yeshua, etc.
You know, I just watched the TV one time. I see a movie in the TV. I see this is Zayd al-Halal. I see they put it in the TV, he's white. But everybody know, even the white, they know this is Zayd al-Halali, he's a black. Why you put in the TV, in the movie, you put him white man? So I tell them, you see what's the covenant? You see what they're taking you right. So if you know, if you learn, if you know yourself, you have to fight for this. And I tell the people, you have to fight, to my family today, you have to fight for this. You know, they take you right. That Zayd al-Halali, he was a white, a blonde one with a blue eyes. He was a black, more black than in me.
We all had these pictures on the walls of our churches and in the books and Bibles in our homes. Even whatever our religious upbringing, we could say we weren't religious growing up and we weren't this, that, or the other, but the reality is such a central region, such a central role that this region plays remained indelibly impressed in our brains. It is the only way that you can explain to me this day that after 55 or so years of being independent, that African nations still at the Supreme Court level are mimicking their supposedly former European colonial masters. I'm talking about the red petticoats and the the white powdered wigs. I personally would feel rather foolish wearing these things, but you mean to tell me that well-educated men and women are unable to come up with a design that reflects their own unique African culture? You mean that in tropical West Africa, someone hasn't said I'm hot and just said I'm not going to stand for it anymore? It hasn't entered their minds, again, because of the upbringing, the cultural upbringing and the education that they have received.
Because in our school, they didn't teach about black people. They only teach about white people. And guess what? White people outside, not inside this land. So we don't know a lot of things in this land.
Our history
what
is
we
not
know
about people.
Okay, what we know, it's about our people in this land, where they come from.
Yeah.
Most of them, they said we come from Africa, from Sudan, from Morocco, from all these
Some
places.
of them, they are come from Nigeria.
Depends on that this area is not Africa. But what I said, we're still in Africa. That's what I said.
Good.
That's all. We're still in Africa's wall, like inside. This area, it belongs to Africa. That's what I know.
So people, they have to, to study, to know the truth from the right people,
Yeah.
to know you're right. Never give up the fight. You have to fight for it. Then if our people, they will know this, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying exactly like this. It's a small meeting like this. You see, now one of my sons, he can walk like this, walk like a brave. Yeah, you see this people in the mosque. I say, you see this people in the mosque. He don't want the black in the mosque to become the imam, the first man who did this. Then he start to say Hassan al-Basri this. His education from the black people. So don't say it. They say what? I say yeah. You have to become to become the leader. He say Hassan al-Basri. You have to stand the imam and don't say Hassan al-Basri. He say my cousin Hassan al-Basri, my brother Hassan al-Basri. This is the way, to feel yourself in a spiritual. The spiritual fight, struggle.
Yeah.
People, if they don't know, they can't struggle.
So they don't see Israel as being part of Africa, because and that's the whole fight. That's why there's got to be this tug of war and this war in heaven that the Revelator, John the Revelator, referred to the war in heaven. Of course, it's not up in the sky. The war is here, and it's for the hearts and minds and souls of our people. So Jerusalem is in Northeast Africa. We can document it. I'm sure that anyone who takes the time to come here, and we take them to the different villages where you'll find African people, sure, it was a great crime committed. This land was transformed from being black to white.
I tell them there is a black kings before here. So I said, this family was the king, but they change everything.
Yes,
they cover everything.
Yeah.
But we're CSI agents. We're spiritual CSI investigators, and we've been able to re-examine this scene, this crime scene, and do a little DNA test, and we find the kinky hairs in this village, and we find the pockets. There was an attempt to sweep the land clean of its original inhabitants, but no one ever commits a perfect crime. And if you're a better investigator than those that committed the crime, you will piece together what actually took place. And it's easy to see when we have assembled in the last our 45 years plus living here in this land, and the last 100 or so years of those who were teaching about our connection to this land.
Search archaeology and anthropology, they said this church was built on the mountain of Calvary, okay? And this is the particular place where he was nailed on the cross.
Okay.
And I'm giving you their explanation, not mine. This is Mount Calvary. This is the 14th station.
It's 14th station.
Yeah, because the 14 stations of Villa Dolorosa, the path of the blood. This is where they said...
We can go a bit more.
So this is where the Spear of Destiny supposedly sliced him then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, this is the poker here, right, in front of us.
This is the place where the cross was placed.
What do you think of the concept of a white Jesus?
Well, you see, brother, I don't want to intervene in this issue, you see, because me, myself, I have a doctrine. You have to respect the emotions of the others if you want them to respect your emotions. But to what I heard from my father, from my uncles, they look at all prophets as people from our people. They regard Jesus to be black, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham. Yeah. Now, concerning Jesus, right, they look at him and I can say logically, in a reasonable way, he was from our people. He born in Bethlehem. So I can't imagine that he was blonde with blue eyes. No. No. He born in Bethlehem, grew up in Nazareth, yeah. Died here in Jerusalem, buried in Jerusalem.
We're in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. We are at the Roman chapel, and one of the things that we want to point out to our viewers today is that if you could shine the light upon this picture of Yeshua, and you see that his ethnic originality is African. Now, these pictures are always in the dark in this particular church because this depicts the true ethnic origin of Yeshua. Yeshua was an African Hebrew Israelite. And here, these pictures depict his true pigmentation.
According to the Holy Scriptures, the Canaanites were the original inhabitants of this land. Through historical or biblical reference, could you tell me what origin they were with regards to color and race?
Certainly. Well, when we go back to the book of Genesis in the 10th chapter, it gives what is called the Table of Nations, and it's really a chronological, not so much a chronological, but a genealogical record. The ancient Hebrews, their concept of time was much different than what we know today. Watches would have been completely irrelevant back in that particular time. They dealt with seasons, but certainly the Canaanites were descendants of Ham. Ham was one of 3 sons of Noah, as we read in the Table of Nations, the post-flood era, the post-diluvian age, when there was a great a deluge, a great cataclysmic deluge upon the earth and a new beginning for humanity. And those that came out of that particular situation, we know that Noah had his 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And when you start to talk about the appearance in terms of, again, color of these sons, of these ancestors, or of those that descended from Noah, it's problematic because, again, how does a man have 3 sons and one is yellow, one is brown, one is white, which is the commonly taught and understood scenario that made up for, of course, Ham taking up Africa, Shem is the Asian races, and Japheth became the European races. That doesn't really hold up in science, and if you want to know what I'm talking about, go back to the ancient Grimaldis, who were obviously 27,000 years ago, who were living in Europe and who were very, very dark-skinned, and they were Japhetic people, according to that particular record. But Ham then went on to have 4 sons. And of course, when we talk about this whole idea of race, and again, it being a social construct, and racism flowing from that, this prejudice, this bias towards those of a fairer complexion, they've always, yielded and said, well, we're Ham. In fact, they came up with their own biblical reference that never even existed in the biblical record, and that was that of the Ham curse, the Hamitic curse, that Ham was cursed black. And you will find no reference at all to the idea of Ham having been cursed, period, and you will find no reference of to anyone in the scriptures being cursed black. So it's just not there. It was a pretense. It was a convenient way, and hoping that nobody would actually go in and actually read the Bible for themselves to justify it. But it was an interpretation that still, unfortunately, hangs over the heads of many African people. But Ham had 4 sons. Again, of course, if Ham is black, and everybody knows that he is because he was cursed black, of course. But if Ham was black, then his sons would have been dark-skinned as well. And those 4 sons were Canaan, or let me go back and let me deal with Mitzrayim, Put, Cush, and Canaan. Mitzrayim was the ancient Egypt, Kemet. Put was the ancient Libya. Cush was ancient Ethiopia. And of course, Canaan, ancient inhabitants of this land that we now reside in. And this is why in the old Negro spirituals, we sang about Canaan's land. This is Canaan's land. So without question, this was a Hamitic, particular Hamitic inhabited region.
Here we have this treasury. As you notice, the face of that figure is missing because usually in Africa, and particularly in Egypt, Great Sphinx, the pharaohs, the faces have all been disfigured because they had voluptuous characteristics, which meant that that was an African people.
And that's why they draw the line at Egypt, because if they give up Egypt, they've got to give up Israel. Why? When Joseph was sold into captivity by his brethren later didn't recognize Joseph as he was sitting in a position of great authority in Egypt. He looked similar. The ancient Israelites and ancient Egyptians looked similar. And there are numerous other parallels that basically clearly, hands down, place the fact that Israel in antiquity were dark-skinned people. We invite all of you who have the heart and the courage to not pay attention to what's going on CNN when they try to portray this as a land where missiles are flying every day in and day out. We fear for those of you who are yet in the streets of Chicago, who are yet in the streets of Newtown, Connecticut, as we just witnessed. We truly know that there's a force that has brought us here, and it's the same force that protects us and provides for us, and will continue to do so in the future. So we welcome you to come and to link up with us on your own. If you're not convinced, come and do your own investigation. And we feel that the truth will have its way. As Yeshua said, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And if we are not yet free as Africans throughout Africa of the European neo-colonial influence, if we're not yet free of poverty and free of disease and free of stress, then there's something wrong, and we have yet to come into contact with truth. If we understand that formula as the brother Yeshua laid it out, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Truth is not something that you just learn or hear. Truth is something that you have to do, that you have to practice.
Welcome at the African Quarter. First, my name is Ali Mohammed Jidda. In fact, if you take the map of the old city, you never find the African Quarter. You will find Christian Quarter, Armenian, Jewish, Muslim Quarter, but never the African Quarter. Whenever you go with a tour guide, an Israeli tour guide, you never hear about the African Quarter. So those people who come from our people come to the African Quarter, I say to them, you are blessed in some way.
Jerusalem is divided into 4 quarters, the old city as it stands now. It's divided into 4 quarters. You have your Armenian quarter, your Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter, and the Muslim quarter. And within the Muslim quarter is where you will find the African quarter. It's not going to be found on any maps, but indeed the presence of our brother Ali Jeddah and the Afro-Palestinian families that live in that part of the city in what was formerly known as Prison Gate Street testifies to the African presence there in this ancient city. Now, in 1967, that particular area that is now called the Kotel, where you will find the Western Wall Plaza, the Wailing Wall Plaza, where many Jews will come from all over the world. It's the most sacred site in Judaism. It's the foundational wall, the westernmost wall of the temple that Solomon erected there. You will find that in 67 that there existed the Moors Quarter, and this is documented. We have a 1928 photograph taken by one of the old-time photographers in Jerusalem that made a living shooting different scenes and peoples and events in the old city. And his caption of the photograph reads Moors or Moorish Quarter. Of course, the Moors were African people. And this is something that again, dates back to antiquity. Up until 1967, after the 67 Six-Day War and the capture of the old city by Israel Defense Forces, that particular area was razed to the ground to make way. These were homes and buildings, businesses and shops and mosques, I'm sure. But you can see these structures in the photograph. And this was razed to the ground to create the Western Wall Plaza that we have today. This was all part of an African presence in Jerusalem.
There's no border. You don't make border. You make border, you make the people, in the soul. They say, you're different. We are not different.
That's right.
We have the same the same blood.
Maybe sometimes you know that Ali Jadda, maybe he's free to move more than us because he have Israeli ID.
Yeah, right.
Okay, not Israeli citizen, but Israeli ID, so he can move more than us. Because you have,
Your
a
ID
green.
is Jordanian?
No, it's a Palestinian ID. It's a green ID.
Oh, the green one.
Do you know?
Okay, I want to tell you something.
Let me see the green one.
Sir, I want to tell you something. When they bring a report on TV, not in Palestinian TV, on national TV, about Palestinian suffering, you ever see a black brother?
No.
But we suffer the same.
When I sit with my people, young Palestinians, and I discuss the situation, I say to them, look, you are oppressed, but we as Afro-Palestinians, we are double oppressed. So, now, our issue, if it will be solved, it will be solved in the general, global issue. Meaning, once Palestinians achieve their legitimate rights, I think we as Afro-Palestinians directly, we will not have problems. So for that we are addicted to the struggle because we know pretty well we are not fighting for the sake of the others, we are fighting for ourselves also, for our children, for the coming generation. For that, we are determined in our struggle against the occupation. The way we are living among Palestinians, how do we feel as Afro-Palestinians? You can't imagine, we have a very respectful position among Palestinians, a very unique position among Palestinians, well accepted, respected. In the meantime, we have some of the brothers married to Palestinian girls, some Palestinians married to sisters from the quarter. I never felt discriminated because of my color. And I think this has to do with our role or contribution in the national struggle. We used to be always among the avant-garde. For example, if you take the first Palestinian female to be put in Israeli jails, she came from the African quarter, Sister Fatima Barnawi. She was arrested in 1967, sentenced 30 years, of which she passed 11 years. Deported, she came back with Chairman Arafat in 1994. Today she is the chief of the Palestinian police, female in the Palestinian Authority. Me, myself, when I was 18 years old in 1968, I was arrested, I was sentenced 20 years, of which I passed 17 years. From 1968, I was released in 1985. Most of the brothers and sisters of the second generation in the first Intifada, for example, were arrested for their contribution in the Intifada. In this Intifada of Al-Aqsa of year 2000, on the first day, on the 29th of December, year 2000, we had a martyr from the quarter, Brother Osama Jidda, 20 years old. He was just coming out of the hospital at the Mount of Olives after donating blood for those Palestinians who were injured inside the Aqsa Mosque because of the clashes. While coming out, there was a confrontation between a group of young Palestinians and Israeli soldiers. So he was shot with a dum-dum bullet. A dum-dum bullet, a bullet which goes in the body and fragments. 20 years old, a month later he was supposed to marry, Brother Osama Jidda. So this role, if you go to Jericho, for example, to Sister Ruqayya Takruri, she can show you two houses of the Afro-Palestinians who were demolished by the Israelis because some members of the family were arrested for their role in the Intifada.
Okay, when they release prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, for the exchange of Israeli soldiers, do they release African prisoners?
Yeah, he was Ruqayya's brother.
They released him?
Yeah.
So just him was released?
Yeah.
No.
African too. I saw
here in Jericho. There is African. No. There is a lot of them, because
a lot of them in the prison.
A lot of African.
They released
in Nablus, there's
from
African.
Jericho.
From Jericho.
From Jericho, he's one. But
لا أنا الأخرى سليم الحبس وطلع.
Hold on. They said about the last one, right? The last one, they released two. But when they took him, they released them. After a while.
My uncle, he was in jail.
He was in jail,
for 15 years there. But he's outside right now.
بيحكي عن Shalit. You're talking about the Shalit, the last one, right?
Yeah.
They released two. One from Tulkarm or Gaza, I don't remember. And the second one, his Ruqayya brother. I saw them.
So you know this individual person who they released?
What?
You know the person who they released? You know in person?
Yeah, I know one of them. And he's living in Gaza. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was told by Jadasa that when they released Palestinian prisoners, they're not allowed to live in Palestine no more. They have to go to Gaza. Is that true?
Yeah.
So you can live in you can be from Jericho, but once they release you as a political prisoner, they now send you to Gaza.
Yeah, he can't come here anymore.
We can't enter Gaza.
But they when we want to go to see him, not me, his family. They should cross to Jordan, after Jordan, Egypt to Gaza.
They had to move on.
So you're saying his family, his family live in Jericho?
Yeah.
Where you live here?
Yeah,
Jericho.
Do you want to talk with him? With
his family? With who? With him?
With their family.
I would love to. But I'm saying is you're saying that they can't just go from Jericho and just drive through the border and go straight into Gaza.
No,
they have to go all the way around.
Because the Israeli, they send him to Gaza because he can't be here.
He can't move.
Because he was a political prisoner.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is his family, they won't let his family just go across the border and go into Gaza. They have to go all the way around.
Yeah.
Jordan.
From Palestine to Jordan.
But that's ridiculous.
From Jordan to Egypt, from Egypt to
But
Gaza.
isn't that unfair?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's not fair. We know that.
Because to go from here to Gaza directly, how long will it take? We're not just normally from here to Gaza, from Jericho to Gaza.
3 hours. 3 hours and a half.
3 hours in car from Jericho to Gaza.
You know, from Jericho to Gaza, it's near Dimona. It's not far away from Dimona.
So 3 hours. So you're saying 3 hours from Jericho to Gaza. But now this black political brother, his family has to go from Jericho, go where?
Jordan.
Jordan to Egypt together.
And how long would that take technically?
A lot. Days.
And that's if they have the money to do that too.
Yeah. Spent money.
So do you think that's kind of fair or is that unfair? What do you think?
No, it's not fair. We know that it's not
unfair. Totally unfair.
Israelis look on us in a way so discriminating, so racist. They call us Kushi. This way, brother. You see, one of the words they just mentioned, Kushi. Well, they began calling us niggers, Hamburg. niggers, sambo.
What's that? Who the kids just making?
Yeah, the kids. They began saying kushi, meaning niggers, sambo.
So these kids are taught racism from their young then?
Yeah. They grow them up
to be racist.
Racism, discrimination. So imagine yourself to be black and Palestinian at the same time. If you take our position in the Israel society, it's totally different. We feel that we are under double oppression by the Israelis. First, as Palestinians. Second, because of our color. They call us Kushi. Kushi means nigger, Sambo. Yeah. And I think this is very important to our people abroad. They should know such facts. Because I see a lot of our people coming around, mainly from the USA, brothers, sisters, going with that Israeli tour guide like a cattle of goats, fooling them, cheating them, smiling to their pockets, while in the back they stab them. So such facts, I think it's very important to bring them to our people over there. Now, also discrimination in the Israel society, I'm not surprised of that because discrimination is an ideology. For example, you have two main groups in the Israel society, the European ones, Faradi, Ashkenazim, and the Oriental ones, Faradim, a lot of hostility between those. But today, the most discriminated among the various Jewish groups are our people who came from Ethiopia, the Falasha. And there was one day in the late of the 80s, a campaign of donation of blood. So our people went like other Israelis, donated blood. At the end of the day, they found out that all blood donated by the Falasha was thrown to the garbage. Even Peres, Shimon Peres, who was the president in the meantime today, when they asked him about his comment about that, he said, well, we are not sure if their blood is clean or not. Yeah. I know some of the cases of our people, those Falasha, more than 50 years in the country, still they are living in caravans. While if you are an European Jewish, blonde with blue eyes, maximum in a month, you will be in a very bombarded apartment.
How do you feel about when your ancestors come to Israel, that they've now asked them to convert into their philosophy of what they believe, knowing your ancestors have an older custom? What do you feel? How do you feel about that?
I feel very bad because even I knew them later. They are my brothers, they are my sisters. Even I meet them, but the Europeans or the Ashkenazi philosophy is not much with them. So I don't have an instrument to fight them, but just I try to convince, no, these Ethiopians, they have own culture, own customs, they want to keep it. But we have very less power here in this land, and it's very difficult to convince and to take and to run in our ways like when we've been in Ethiopia.
Really, I want to say the regional people here in this land, even the Jewish, a Christian, Muslim, they live in peacefully. But the wrong thing that the people they come from a far away from maybe America, Europe, this is people, their policy for to make the people to fight about religion, about something like this. Me exactly here, I'm sitting with the Hebrews, with the Jewish, with the Palestinian Authority in Jericho, in Nablus, in Tulkarem, with the Ethiopian, with every family. We are brothers. We know that we are brothers, we are one family, we come from one family, and we have to know the truth. If you know the truth, you will know what's the wrong.
Who would marry the Ethiopian people back in Ethiopia?
The priestess.
Your priest.
Like rabbi.
Okay, but now these Ethiopians have come to Israel. Are your rabbis still marrying your people?
No,
or?
there is no married our people.
So who marries your people? Who makes you?
More Ashkenazis, more Sfaradis, but there is maybe one or two Ethiopian rabbi. They can make the marriage because these 2 or 3 Ethiopians, they studied here in Sfaradi system, in Ashkenazi system. 7, 8, 10 years they've been in the yeshiva and they received the license.
So Ethiopian priests no longer, Ethiopian priests don't marry your people. They don't have that power no more.
No, they don't have a power.
So
Yeah.
is the Ashkenazis and the European Jews marrying your people, telling your people they can be married?
Of course.
Therefore, they're taking away the power and the custom and the beautiful culture.
All of the beautiful things have bring them from Africa, from Ethiopia. They took it. Maybe they destroyed it. Sometimes, I work in Israeli parliament. Sometimes I spoke in Amharic. Also, there are peoples they feel very bad. How do you know that? They are not talk. They don't tell me don't talk Hebrew, but according to the body language, I understood.
שגב שלום הוא יישוב בדואי, ובדרך כלל מה אומרים, הבדואים הם גונבים, הבדואים עושים פרטיזנים, הם לא רוצים לעבוד, הם לא רוצים ללמוד.
Okay, these are the stereotypes of the Bedouins. They are thieves, they do not want to work, they're lazy, they don't take responsibility to develop their own future, okay?
בכיינים כל הזמן רק בוכים, אין.
They cry babies. All they do is cry and say what they don't have. This is the image that they portray of the Bedouin.
Who portrays that type of image?
Okay,
about the
me משגדר את הצלם הזה.
זה אנחנו שומעים גם מחברי כנסת לפעמים, זה לא בדיוק אם אומרים...
These are government officials that's in the Knesset in Jerusalem that says these things.
Israel government.
Yeah, of Israel's
אני
government.
אתן לך דוגמה.
He said he's going to give an example of what he's talking about.
כל העולם גם שומע את זה, אני מאוד כואב לי לפעמים.
He said this hurts him to express this.
נגיד ילד, וזה תמיד יש יוצאים מהכלל, אם תופסים מישהו גנב, בדואי תמיד יגידו בחדשות הבדואים, הנה גנב בדואי. אם מישהו מרמת אביב או מהרצליה עושה זה, אפילו לא מדברים בחדשות, או יגידו בן טובים, אבל פה הם יגידו זה בדואי. הם לא יגידו צעיר. תמיד אומרים נער טוטו, אבל פה זה בדואי.
He said just for an example, last year there was one Bedouin child that was caught stealing something. And they blew it up and was saying that the Bedouin, not the youth, they put the Bedouin youth, to really specify what youth this is. He said, but if one of these children in Herzliya, Herzliya is in the rich suburbs, one of the children in Kifar Saba, or in these wealthy in the neighborhood, if they have a child that steals something, that's not going to be blown up all over, the newspapers because it comes from an affluent area, But he said when a Bedouin child is caught stealing something, they expand it to make it seem like this is just the general characteristic of what Bedouin children do.
European come from Romania or come from this, like our Prime Minister Netanyahu. He all his life is to live in America, and you come here to control. You know what's Bedouin? He respects what's Bedouin. He's a finances man. Yeah. He's not a businessman. We share our food together. Sometimes I have something. Maybe they have carrots or something. Hey, we have too much food. Take to your family. Take you to family. So it's different. It's different spirit. Even the people, Jewish, Christians, who's living this holy land, he's have a clean blood. He's a peaceful man. But this guys, these people who's coming from Europe, they just bring the beast. They bring the devil here.
The European Jews, you mean? Those
Yeah,
European Jews
yeah.
bring a lot of war.
Yeah. I say, I'm very clear. I'm talking true. I don't want to say I'm a religion man, this is Jewish, this is Christian. I tell you, all the people who live in this land before 1,000 years, he's a good man. Go to Bethlehem. Go to Jericho. You find the Christian, they live with the Muslim. Nobody talk. You never hear what's wrong. You see the Jewish before, and not Kiryat Arba, before there's a Jewish. Where is Abraham's?
The Jewish before, you mean before the state of Israel, the Jewish long time ago?
No, when the state of Israel, but before the policy come to separate, they live like this. They pray in the same time. We have the same place. Now it's 1 hour for the Jewish. After this you go, they come to Muslims. Nobody talk.
Yeah.
They don't need no government, no soldier, nothing. They're between us. Okay, now my time, your time. They need to. Nobody fight. But now they say, this is the philosophy, different philosophy. That's, you want to control. Now they say, this is for the Jewish. And the Islam, this is for the Islam. And this is it's not for you. It's not for him. Abraham is not for you, not for him, not for... Abraham is for the Jewish, for the Muslims, for the Christian, for everybody.
It's a known fact that Europeans as they exist today, the fair-skinned quote-unquote races, because we don't believe that race is a biological construct, it's a social construct. And that's very problematic in these times.
Now, the African quarter, let's say on the economic level, we are from the poorest sectors among the Palestinian people. Most of the youth, girls and boys, are obliged to quit school and go to work in order to support their families. We had another problem, it's becoming so crowded, the quarter, and there is an increase in the population, so the newly married brothers sisters are obliged to move out to rent apartments, which means the hell for them. And to build a room inside the quarter, it's very risky, very dangerous. We had a case of a brother 3 years ago. He built one room on top of the roof of the parent house for the wife and 5 children. He was fined to pay 30,000 shekel, which is about $10,000, and to demolish the room by his own hands. He was obliged to do it, otherwise they will demolish it and he has to pay for the expenses. So now our issue is in the total issue. Our situation will be improved once the issue of the Palestinian people is improved. Once we achieve our freedom, independence, I think we as Afro-Palestinians, as Black Palestinians, our situation also will improve.
My message to our brothers and sisters in the West and all throughout the world is to stop following after those who obviously have steered you in the wrong direction in the first place. We're simply saying that their way has failed us. How can we raise up democracy when it hasn't really worked in the most democratic of nations? We can't keep using the failed models of others to be that which we then run behind and want to implement for ourselves. That doesn't make common sense. That's not even bad sense. In no way can we begin to continue, or should we continue to pattern ourselves after what are failed models. We've really been given a great blessing here. Africa has been preserved relative, even though it's been raped and pillaged for the last 100 or more years, even they've still only scratched the surface of the great riches that Africa affords for humanity. We need to bring in a new model for development that preserves our environment, that preserves the people, and we have that opportunity now. But of course, if we institute models for economic development, if we institute political models throughout Africa that are based on the models that have brought the world to the brink of its own destruction and the great economic collapses, then we are the ones who would be foolish.
שואלים אותם, איך אתם רוצים לראות את החיים שלכם? איך אתם רוצים את הדברים? ובצורה אחרת, אנחנו מכנסים להם, הנוער של היום, אתה נוער של היום, אתה הבוגר של מחר, של העתיד.
נכון.
ואז הוא מעכשיו, הוא יודע איך הוא רוצה, החזון שלו, אנחנו רוצים שיהיה להם חזון, שיהיה להם מטרה כבר לחיים. כי רוב הנוער, אני רואה שם, אין לו מטרה. וגם הוא צריך לדעת איפה הוא רוצה להגיע.
Right. So what he's saying is that most children, they don't have a vision. They don't have a clue about where they're going to end up. So he's saying what he wants them to take responsibility to think now where they are and then where they want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because if they can begin to conceive where they want to be, they have a better chance of laying out a plan to get there than just taking everything based upon just how it falls.
We know that, again, the world needs a new direction and needs a new model, particularly the African world, people in the African diaspora, and any Africans that are yet in Africa who are following a foreign way, an idea.
ואני תמיד אומר ואני מאמין, אם אני מצליח עם הצוות שיש לי, לתת להם לחלום, עשיתי את העבודה שלי. כי אני מאמין, אם בן אדם חולם, אז הוא גם מאמין במה שהוא עושה. אני רוצה שבכל אחד יהיה חזון וגם להתחבר לחזון אחד בסוף.
Right. What he said is that he's teaching children to dream. He said because if children do not dream, then they cannot create a reality that they themselves believed in and had faith in, so that when they do achieve it, they can have the self-esteem and self-value that they did it. They sat down and they said, this is what I want to be, or this is what I want to do, and then they begin to work on it in a very serious and consistent manner. So again, he was saying he's teaching children how to dream and then how to manifest those dreams.
ואני מאמין תמיד שלכל אחד יש חלום, אבל לפעמים יש גם חלום אחד שהוא מחבר את כל החלומות. וכשאנחנו מגיעים לחלום הזה, שכולנו מתחברים, תמיד זה יותר קל כאילו להתקדם לחלום הכללי של הכלל. לכל אחד יש לו חלום, אבל גם את החלום הכללי שאנחנו מתחברים אליו, של הקהילה.
So what he's saying is that it's important that they not only dream, but that their dreams interconnect. And by connecting their dreams, then they create a social ecology, a people and people ecology. It's all right to have your own dream, but when you connect your dream with your people's dream, then you have a collective national dream. And then by having a collective national dream, you take all the energies of individuals and then you crystallize them and you bring them to focus, and then they can develop a reality that is good for themselves.
The success that we've had here is something that we can't just keep to ourselves. Just like Yeshua said, you can't take a light and hide it under a bushel. You have to hold it up high for others to see if they're in darkness. Isaiah foretold that the days were coming when there would be great darkness upon the earth and the people would be in gross darkness or total darkness. Well, what is this darkness that we expect to see? the darkness is a spiritual darkness. It's not a time when the sun wouldn't shine. It's a spiritual darkness. It's a darkness that is caused when people have been misled and are under the influence of deception and under that influence of an ungodly dominion. So the success that we've been able to have here, we know that we have to share that with others. We know that in the days of Yeshua, Yeshua would always tell his followers, he said, I am first sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, similarly, Yeshua knew that he, as a messianic personage, was not going to wave a magic wand and transform the world. He had to raise up the children of Israel, who then would be the emissaries of this new direction, and they would go to the nations, they would go to the various peoples and begin to teach of those ways. Well, similarly, that's our mission and that's our purpose.
I want to introduce to you Muhammad Masri, a very important friend and ally of the Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona. This is our brother, and as we say in Arabic, Ibrahim Abuna. Yes. Abraham is our father. We are in one family. Wahad. Okay.
אני איש מ-85 חברתי להיות פוליטיקאי.
In 85, he started getting involved in politics. Go ahead. תמשיך.
באו אחים שלנו גם מאתיופיה.
Brothers, he had brothers in Ethiopia.
אתיופיה. עכשיו אני גם, שבאו אתיופים התחברתי אליהם.
When he means brother, he talking about spirit.
Okay.
And then he began developing a relationship with the Ethiopians also.
הייתי עוזר של אדיס ומסאלה.
He was the assistant of Adisa Humsala, which was one of their top political activists in this country.
Okay.
ומאז אני עובד פוליטיקה. הייתי סגן וממלא מקום ראש מועצת סליב שלום.
Okay, he became the deputy mayor of Segef Shalom, right here.
הייתי 8 שנים.
8 years he was the deputy mayor of Segef Shalom.
The whites they don't have a system to make that kind of peace to bring it, but these blacks, they can. Because I am a black, Jewish, came from Africa, from Ethiopia. I can sit with the Muslims, blacks, and talk with them because of we blacks, we have a good respect each other. Not like Europeans, we have individuals behavior.
We are one family. You see this land here, I'm a Bedouin, you may be from where? From England, he's a Hebrew, is it? You can see here, maybe you see me with the children, with everybody. We are some family. I'm a Muslim, he's a Hebrew, doesn't mind. You see, maybe you bring, you invite Nathan from Jerusalem, he's Ethiopian, he's a Jewish. But you see, we are a family, you know, nothing between us. Well, all what you see around us of war or something, nobody. I take it from Ethiopian. Ethiopian is a Israeli soldier. I just change it through the car. We want to eat in a restaurant in Jericho, in Nablus. I said, this Ethiopian. Nobody talk with him. Why? Because we are same family. Even I don't know you, the first time I see you, I say, hi, my brother.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Because what's this? What's this? You have to know that's...
See, that's the thing that's destroying a lot of the youth in the Western Hemisphere, in America and England. You know, they haven't got that love and that unity and the understanding that you have. As you said before, earlier, lack of knowledge. I mean, young youths are killing each other over there, and it's sad to see, I'm sure. I mean, if youths come to England, it'll break your heart. The thing that's happening in like my area where I live in North West London, I mean, you'll see it yourself, like, it's ridiculous. These young black men are just killing themselves over, you know, silly minor things when they don't understand the struggles that our brothers are having over here, but yet you lot can live as one. You know what I mean? Yeah. You said, you know, Muslims, Ethiopians, the Hebrews, you're all together. You're just living as one. Like you're intermingling, creating a warmth of oneness.
When I come to London, it strikes me as so odd that our people have found comfort in a land that's so cold, cold spiritually and cold physically. But we have to come out of her to return back to the lands that we've come from and to bring with us some sensibilities, not bring with us the same things that we've learned and acquired there. There may be a few things we can use and apply, but a lot of that will need to be left behind. And in doing so, another world of beauty, another world of peace and prosperity will be open to us. We've got to redefine what we value, redefine what is positive, redefine what development is. We don't want to develop ourselves to the brink of destruction. We don't want to tear down all the rainforests. Yah forbid, we need the rainforest. But that model for development will end up with humanity being extinct. Our development will be where we can reach a point where we can say, we have enough. And leaders of the future are going to have to convince the people to learn to live with less.
If you came to Dibona, you have a place, the Hebrew Israeli community started 40 years ago. And these people, they start the struggle and the vision and to start to bring the peace within all of the brothers and sisters around here in this area, in Israel, also in Egypt, also in Jordan. It doesn't matter. Even from Africa also come to sit and discuss, to learn. This is your place, this is your land, and will be the peace.
We've tried everything as African people. We've tried London's way, we've tried Washington's way, we've tried Moscow's way, Paris's way, and it has all failed us miserably. We remain in last place as people on the planet. It's time now to begin to turn to our spiritual strength. And of course, as African people, our great strength is our spirituality.
We have to live together in peace without what we're doing here today with the Hebrews, with the people of Jericho or Nablus or Jordan, what we do. Even the ethnic people, the black people, we say there's no border. We are in the same family, in the same region, in the same this.
The great beauty of where we are right now is that we've been playing catch up. We've been playing catch up in Africa, trying to catch up with those who were out in front or who we thought were out in front, trying to create more doctors, trying to get more money, trying to bring more democratic government into Africa. And the reality is that we found that we need to turn around. And in turning around and going the other direction, I mean, we can see America at this very moment, they keep talking about going over the economic or the fiscal cliff. Well, the fiscal cliff is one thing, the moral cliff is totally another. For us, America has long since gone over the moral cliff, which means that nothing can go well with you if you've disconnected from the source of your strength, your spirituality, your relationship with the Creator. But the moment that we as African people turn around and start to head in the other direction, you'll find that we become in first place. We're instantly in first place. And to give you an example, when we went to Ghana and we worked with the Ghanaian Ministry of Health, we were able to usher in, with the help of the then Minister, Courage Kwashiga, Minister of Health, a whole paradigm shift on healthcare. So that healthcare was focused not so much on curing people, hospitalization, training doctors, pharmaceuticals, but to turn it in the other direction towards prevention.
Ghanaians have seen the wisdom in adopting these simple but effective lifestyle activities. It has worked for our brothers and sisters in Dimona. It can work for us.
Drinking enough water, eating a proper diet, more vegetables, less meat, exercise, cleanliness, etc., rest, those types of principles, we were able to turn around the whole paradigm in healthcare, which put Ghana in the lead in the new direction that man must move in.
If you get the truth way, the prophet's way, I call it the prophet's way, the right way, not the devil way, not the... You feel the life. You feel that you're alive. If you die in this way, you are a shaheed. You don't care. But don't be like this, or something like that, very weak.
It's better to die with honor than live with shame. Have you heard that saying? It's better to die with honor than live with shame.
Yeah, and honor. You have to respect yourself.
We are redefining, and this is something that's given unto the sons of Adam, that we are now in a dispensation of time when we have the authority, we have claimed the authority to redefine things as we see fit. Who gave us the authority? By the authority God has given us. Who gave them the authority to come and to divide up Africa and to claim all of Africa and to carve it up to suit their colonial desires and their desires for resources? Who gave them the authority? Some lawyers at the Berlin Conference who had declared Africa to be terra nullius, meaning vacant and available? No. We have the authority by virtue of what is right, by virtue of the godliness and the divinity that we have reclaimed in our lives. And in doing so, it gives us a certain holy boldness. A holy boldness, yea, though we walk or ride through the valley of the shadow of death, we fear no evil. If we are who we say we are, if we are a people whose great strength is our spirituality, that spirituality denotes a relationship with God. And as I read in the scriptures, it says, I'm the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me?
He decided,
לבנות בניין שאתם ראיתם.
you see that new building?
אני רוצה לעשות מכללה.
Okay, now מכללה.
מכללה, אקדמית. אנגלית, עברית.
He building that building for a university.
פה.
ומה הנושא?
הנושא אנגלית.
English, which means that we will be here teaching.
קודם כל אנגלית.
First English.
אנגלית, עברית.
עברית.
ערבית. מתמטיקה.
math.
וגם מכונאות וכל זה.
Also, מכונאות is like mechanics.
למטה.
On the bottom floor.
אני עושה מרפאת שיניים.
He's going to have a dental clinic.
מה עוד? صيدلية. بيت مركحة.
Pharmacy.
בית מרקחת במקום של מחשבים. מחשבים.
And computers.
הצד השני אני עושה לבייבי כל מיני, לבחורה נולדה, כל מיני.
Also prenatal, postnatal. Now, all of this we're going to be involved in with him. Why? Because we expertise in those areas. All right, we already got a brother teaching at our English. I told you, but he got about 120 students. Okay, we also will be taking prenatal. We also will be teaching about nutrition. But you got to envision what's getting ready to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, but see, we're not putting no borders between us because of the religion. Do you understand? We are dealing with people in a humanitarian sphere, and we're providing what people need to have in order to raise the standard of their living.
When you look at the problems of the people today, when you look at the problems of Europe, the problems of America, everyone is only doing what they've been taught. It was people that came out of MIT and Harvard and Yale and Oxford that created neutron bombs and nuclear weapons and all the chemicals that go in the water and pollute the air and go into the food, genetically modified foods, etc., etc. All these are very intelligent, supposedly, individuals. Well, obviously there's something wrong with that intellect that has brought the earth and the environment and the earth to the point of devastation and destruction. There's got to be a new way.
This is theater.
ומלמדים ילדים איך עושים להקה קטנה, צעירה.
Okay, this is a young dance troupe. Okay, and this is just one of the little classes that they have teaching the Yavadim certain dances.
בואו אנחנו נלך נרד למטה לראות חדר כושר.
We're going to go down now and look at the athletics room. Okay, both.
אני בניתי פה, עוד שהייתי מנהל מחלקת ספורט לפני שנתיים, אני הייתי פה, דבר ראשון אמרתי, אני מקים פה חדר כושר.
אתה בנית את זה? אתה קיבלת כסף מהקרן ממשלתי?
כן, אני סיפרתי קרן ממשלתי וגם מפה.
Okay, what he's saying, this was his vision about developing this center. In the beginning, they had no budget for this, but he developed a plan and he was able to receive monies from the government to develop this center.
One of the great successes we've had is that of establishing our own food production. We make our own soy products. We make our own soy milk, soy ice cream, tofu. We make whole wheat, gluten, what would be called analogs or meat alternatives, vegan fare, vegetarian foods that are suitable for those who are making the transition from meat-based to plant-based diets. So these are great successes that we've had, and we're replicating. We have a factory in Israel that supplied ourselves and the larger Israeli society for 25 years now at least. And the same model for that factory is now in place in Ghana, where it's been in operation for some years now. We're about to open up another factory in Zimbabwe. We're now exporting what we call Dream Cream, which is a vegan, no dairy ice cream that's being exported into South Africa, and we're looking to actually begin to produce it in South Africa in the near future. So once we've achieved some successes, then we replicate that in our organic farming. Well, the farm here is a model farm, but we know that this idea can be replicated. There was a U.S. sociologist once, his name was Robert Merton. He said that, like the laboratory of a chemist, he said, if you have 1,000 failures and one success, he said, throw the 1,000 failures out. He said, you've got that one success. He said, find out what made it work. And when you find out what made that success possible, then you have a formula that will allow you to replicate that success anywhere else in the world. H2O anywhere in the world will give you water. And part of our formula, in fact, the great umbrella, the great foundation of our formula for success is our spirituality. So consequently, you will hear when we talk about farming or agriculture, it's called divine agriculture. It's not just information, it's divine information. It's not just dedication or education, it's divine dedication / education. And the divine is simply implying that it's in a manner that is pleasing unto God. And if whatever it is that we're doing in this all-encompassing lifestyle that we've embraced, this 24/7 relationship with the Creator, if all of what we do embraces the divine and it is found to be pleasing unto the Creator, well, certainly it will be then in His best interest to preserve it and to protect it. And therefore it will continue, that success will continue. And that's what we attribute our great success here to. And when we say that the formula is that divinity, and that the formula is how we invoke the Creator's will and interest in whatever it is that we do, some people might have a problem with that. Some people may find that, well, we'll do this, but we're not going to do that. We're going to change the diet. We're going to stop eating the meat, but we're still going to wear polyester clothing. Well, the polyester clothing, guess what? As part of the holistic approach to healthcare, polyester clothing is full of chemicals, harmful chemicals that lay up next to your skin day in and day out, that don't allow the the soaking up of the toxins through the sweat. Don't allow that, and then you reabsorb that into your body again, which doesn't make any sense. Well, guess what? 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you'll have a cancer, and you'll want to know, where did it come from? Well, it could have come from that Dacron, polyester, Banlon, those artificial impure fabrics that we've allowed ourselves to wear. So that's all part of this holistic lifestyle. And we're saying there's a formula. You don't want to tamper with H2O. You might add a little XYZ and it might still look like water. It might taste like water, go down like water, but guess what? It's not water anymore. And that little bit of XYZ might be what kills you. So we're saying that we are now, again, a superpower for truth. That's what we represent. We hold no monopoly on truth. We're not the only ones to find truth, but when we find truth, the next step for us is, how do we implement it? How do we apply it in our life? We're here in Northeast Africa. We're here in the land of Israel, which historically has been known as Zion. It's been, you hear many references to Jerusalem, and you hear many references to the importance of Jerusalem in what are known as the latter days or the end times. And of course, we know that these end times are not referring to the end of the earth or the world as we know it today, but it's an end of a particular dominion of a people over the affairs of the earth. That end was something that Nebuchadnezzar was able to glimpse in his dream, and he needed Daniel, the Hebrew prophet, to come in and to interpret that dream for him. In which he told him, said, but you, O king, you, the king of ancient Babylon, you are the head of this beast that you saw. And he went on and he explained this devolution, if you will, of various empires, world empires that would follow Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. And of course, we're living now in the time of the mixture of ancient Rome and the new dominion that has arisen. Of course, that is the Western world. Partly made out of the old iron that Rome was represented by, but also partly representing or partly made up of clay, this new material. And clay and iron don't mix. So obviously it would be a very, very weakened and mixed dominion. And we see that in this era of time, the European Union and of course her sister or daughter even, modern day Babylon or America. Well, we know that Jerusalem, according to Isaiah, in the end time, in the latter days, was to be established as a spiritual center. This is not really something new because Jerusalem always was a spiritual center. This is what motivated the Queen of Sheba to make a journey, a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to inquire of King Solomon.
In the future they will be okay, but us I like a sheep and a wolf, you know. If the leader come a good man with good feeling, everything we will fix it. But if we come with a spirit, a fight spirit, he wants a blood or wants it in his side, maybe the prime minister, the president, you will never succeed. But I think we all pray to the greatest, you know. To come one day in election, maybe will come a good man, and you see he can solve all this trouble in the Middle East.
To grow up this kind of process, I think the next generation or the next 50 or 60 years, by the help of God of Israel, we will see a very peaceful land for us and for others. For us means for blacks. Starts from Dimona and the Ethiopian Jewish and the Eritrean community, all of the Africans brothers. Even in America, people like Obama also, they start to think about this idea.
Doing the job for the others, like Brother Obama. I usually say about him is a coconut. Coconut.
The whole idea of Obamacare and all the flack that Obama has taken for what is not a health care bill at all, but it's a health insurance bill. The reality is that, and this is frightening, more people die at the hands of doctors in hospitals and of drugs that are, one, improperly prescribed, and drugs that were properly prescribed but they still had adverse reactions to. When you add those up, that's the number 3 cause of death in America. That's a sacrilege. But more people die every week than 4 jumbo jets worth of people. But you never hear about this. You would hear about a jet crash for weeks, and there would be all kind of inquiries into the cause of this jet crash. But the equivalent of 4 jumbo jets dies every week at the hands of the healthcare system in America. Is this a model that we want to hold up for success, or to replicate, or to mimic? Absolutely not. So I'm saying that when we turn around and begin to head in a sensible direction, and not the direction that the lemmings are headed in, then we will find ourselves in first place. So our message, my message to our people, in the African people who are yet in the captivity, who are yet under the influence of unrighteous dominions, is come out of her, my people. The same message that the Revelator gave in the book of Revelation, that come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven. It's time to come out. Abraham had to come out of Ur the Chaldees. Lot had to come out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Moses had to lead our people of Israel, the people, out of ancient Egypt. And in this dispensation of time, it's no different. America was a land of captivity for us. The West is a land of captivity for us.
We lack unity and organization.
Yeah.
These are the 2 main elements for my people.
I feel you.
If we had organization and unity, you can't imagine what will be our role in this world. Look on us today, unbelievable. For example, in Africa, what's happening? We are killing each other. For the sake of whom? For the sake of the others. They take everything from our land, and they bring us weapons to kill each other.
It's time now to begin to turn to our spiritual strength. And of course, as African people, our great strength is our spirituality. Africa's been preserved to be the place where God will reside again. And of course, wherever God resides, wherever Yah will reside, you will find peace, you will find happiness, you will find prosperity, you will find health. And I could go on and on with the great blessings that are going to be bestowed upon Africa once we turn back to our great strength, our spirituality, not our religiosity.
How's your views in saying that the original people, we need to come back to our homeland, like the original black people's land, will one day come back? Do you see that happening?
This will happen one day, but the people, they have to believe and to know his roots and to go to his roots. Because I want to tell something, from my experience. When I go to my grandfather or my family land, I go there just in the desert, I take just maybe a small bread with 1 tomato, and I start to eat it. And I ask some people, my grandfather said, it's very tasty. He said, you know what is very tasty? Because you come back to the roots. Here is the spirit. If your grandfather, grandmother, I was living here, everybody make here, this is the good people. We all the time they say, the people there before is a good people, they still the spirit in this land. So you feel different.
We don't believe that money is what will deliver us. It's our intelligence, it's our knowledge, it's our connection and relationship to the Creator. So we put the Creator out front in all that we do, and allow His great works to be manifest and to give the glory back unto him when those great successes come.
I want to quote somebody I read about him in prison. He said, "The truth is more stubborn than the stone." Listen pretty well. What does he mean by that? He means that today you can cover it, you can hide it. Tomorrow you can hide it, but one day, no way it has to put itself in front of all the people. It's a truth. We as Afro-Palestinians, as the original inhabitants of this land, is a truth, is a fact.
I want to say this very clear, very directly, not directly, for everybody who knows his history is here in this land, to come back, just to come back, to know, to come back and to feel. Then you can talk with him and say, how's your spirit? How your morality? You say, it's a change. But he will feel different. He say, you know, I don't need nothing. I want to stay in this land. I don't want to go nowhere. That's why even, you know, I'm taking my friend, taking my brother, taking my my sons every month or 2 weeks. I take him to our land. Why? You know, to let him smell. I say, here's your first grandfather. He do this. I go to some place. They're growing there a fish, making fish. I just come there to see. You see, the police come to me. What are you doing here? I said, what I'm doing here? He's a Russian. He's come for 2 years now. He said, what are you doing here? I said, what I'm doing here? This is my grandfather. This is my grandfather. He was here making, you know, all the food for us. What do you think? I'm sitting here, I make coffee, I say, yeah. Then he understands, he said, oh, okay. I say, you want me to go up? No, I will fight with you. I don't care, you have a gun, anything. He said, my grandfather, man, you know, at least let me to sit here to remember how he was, how he's make this, where he have come to collect, you know, in this winter time, how they collect, they make well, bear, mine, water. Water, how make the water, how make this. So I want to tell everybody, you know, if he know where is his history exactly, just to visit and to feel that. You see this tick. Even he don't say, I want to go back, I have a house, I have a car, I have a system. But here, to sit here is different. The spirit is different. Everything is spirit. If he's sick, if he's sick, he will not be sick. Really. There's something different, something special. That's why you see, you know, if you don't know these things, you never have a land. You never have. Maybe in England. Alex, sorry that Steve. I'm sorry I taken you like an example.
Yeah. No problem.
But you know, in England you have a house. But here in this land you have a home. It's different.
I agree.
It's different. So if every black who's living anywhere, okay, and he knows that there's a religion from here, come to this gene, come to the light, come back, and you will feel it. You feel home. You feel nobody tell you where you come from. Where I come from? I'm from here. You see how people, nothing separate them. Jewish, Christian, religion not separate our people. Nothing separate our people. Because we are in a movement in one way. one way, one direction, one voice, one vision. But a different side. Different side, but the same way. How they say, all the rivers is going where? To the sea.